Oh my. Oh my.
You are now tuned in to the Revolution Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, how you doing? I hope you're having an amazing day. Welcome to, I'm excited to announce, the very first episode of the Revolution Podcast. I am your boy, J Love, a.k.a. JX, the illegitimate son of Malcolm X. I got a whole bunch of AKAs, but we're going to have a whole bunch of fun on here today. And I got a guest with me today who's not just a guest. He's a personal friend. I've known him for well over 20 years. He's a lot of things. He is a minister. He's a mentor. He's a businessman. He's a teacher. Give it up for my man, Mark DeMoika. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm wonderful, bro. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. In the midst of everything going on in our world right now, which we're going to get into in a second, I'm feeling really, really excited. You know, I am the eternal optimist underneath all my anger. If you're wondering, the revolution, man, we're going to be talking about everything that affects your life. So from politics to current affairs to just the things that irritate you. That's the things that, you know, because we're trying to revolutionize your mind, your emotions, your health, your finances, your spirit. We're trying to revolutionize your whole life. So, you know, before I get into anything further, I just heard the news, and I know you pointed out to me that Regis Philbin just passed away.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, you know, shout out to Regis. I think Regis is an OG. You know what I mean? And I definitely grew up watching Regis and admired what he did. So shout out to him. Obviously, 2020 is that year where
a lot of things are happening.
Whew, man. And so I want to get right into it. The first thing I want to address today, because I feel like I keep having conversations, right? And there's this duality between people trying to figure out what, you know, if we being real, what is Black Lives Matter? Is it a Marxist organization? Is it a terrorist group? Is it, you know, what is this whole thing? And I think it's important that we articulate this well and bring a distinction between, you know, what maybe people might think Black Lives Matter is and what Black Lives Matter is.
Right.
And, you know, in the words of our former president, what is. What's your definition of is?
Right. It's interesting that you bring that up. I was just looking at ESPN yesterday, and LeBron James said that, you know, Black Lives Matter is a lifestyle,
Absolutely.
not a movement. And I think, unfortunately, because of the bandwagoners, or however you want to put it, when you put that banner out as Black Lives Matter and it's moving and it's drawing in attention, people jump on just because they want the attention, which is interesting, especially the ones who claim that, oh, you know, I don't want the fame or whatever, but yeah, you're in the front lines in front of the camera making sure you're seen. But it's key that you just said that what is it? From the a Black life itself.
What do you say Black Lives Matter is, sir?
Well, to be truthfully honest, my life matters. I mean, I happen to be Black, so
you Black?
According to my birth certificate, yes.
But here's another thing people need to realize: Black comes in every single hue configuration under the sun, from light bright, almost white, to the bliggity black, purple, black,
right.
black.
Blue black.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is because, you know, I've had that question asked many times in my life. Are you Black? I'm like, look, you have to understand this. I didn't order this. Is stock. This came off the showroom floor like this. I didn't order it. So if you have an issue with the way you look, then you need to have that conversation with your parents. So I ain't got nothing to do with that. So, but as far as what it means to me is, I have 3 kids. I have 2 boys and a daughter. And for me, the Black life matters because their life matters. And so as raising young men and women in this culture, it's been important for me to first and foremost make sure that they're comfortable in who they are,
right,
regardless of what your environment tells you. I instill in them to be proud of who you are and what you stand for. Because if you don't stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And so that has been like the main thing, especially my two young men, because of the fact of what happens to black men.
Right.
And that has been on my mind since they were born. I told them, when your Social Security number came up, when they printed it, they waiting to cash in on it.
Right.
And so I told them from day one, don't do anything that disrespects your mom.
Right.
I get it by benefit of being married to your mother, but don't do anything that disrespects her to put her in a position where she's got to,
right,
ultimately feel bad or whatever. So,
well, let me do this. And so what I want to do is I want to try to articulate kind of the things that people are, and if you don't know, it's not your fault. I think because it's a relatively new conversation. I mean, for the most part, let's be honest, most of mine in your lifetime, we didn't really discuss race with other people.
No.
Right, quote unquote, other people.
No, it's definitely amongst our own.
Right, and I'm just assuming. I don't know. I wasn't in the rooms, but I don't think necessarily they really discussed race. So I think there's a lot of conversations that might be uncomfortable that we need to have. But before we can get to any type of understanding or unity or whatever idyllic utopia that we'd all like to be in,
right,
we have to like really have these conversations, right? And so I'm going to say some things probably every single episode that people are not going to agree with. But, I stand by what I say, and I want to make it a point to not speak out of emotion, right, but to just speak out of like just what the facts are. So Black Lives Matter. There is an organization, like an actual, I believe they're a 501c3
right,
organization called Black Lives Matter. Now, the pushback that a lot of people are giving is based on the organization, right? The organization has been backed by supposed Marxists, right?
Supposed, right.
Right. Has Marxist leanings.
Right.
Has very heavy, for people who are not down with that, like very heavy, like LGBT, especially trans overtones.
Right.
Right. They, they're real big on that. So there's a lot of people who, when they look up Black Lives Matter and the movement comes up, immediately it's this very, it's very polarizing, and people go, oh, no, that's ridiculous. How could you be, because it really does come off that way. Right.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of black people that aren't down with Black Lives Matter, the organization. Okay. That being said, what we're experiencing now in popular culture is not really the organization. What they did, they were genius in coining this phrase.
Right.
That is really a lot bigger than what their organization is. I mean, the phrase, it speaks to, it speaks to what the cry is, right? And so what we're feeling now, and to not necessarily contradict LeBron, but what we're feeling is the movement. It is a people saying we just want to matter, right? Like black people are still fighting for equality. You feel what I'm saying?
You mean just equal?
Just equal. We just trying to just matter. And so what happens is for so long, look, I'm of a certain age, even though good black don't crack and I don't look my age, but I'm literally the last generation. Myself and my brother, we were bused to school in Houston, Texas on literally a colored quota, right? Like that was on the paper. So it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was our parents' generation that was Jim Crow and all of these things, right? But, I remember growing up and just the different things that we dealt with. I got beat up by the cops and called nigger for the first time when I was 12, not really understanding like, yo, what just happened? You feel me? But I remember not wanting to disappoint the good white people around me,
right,
and make it a big deal. You feel what I'm saying? Because they was good.
Right.
My white folks is good white folks. You know what I'm saying? And so there's this, what I'm trying to articulate is for people who are, because I think this conversation is more for people who are not black, is I want you to understand that it wasn't about George Floyd, right?
Right.
I mean, George Floyd, he took, like, his death took the lid off of this thing that has been boiling and boiling and boiling. And I don't even want to say years, but literally for centuries, right? And so now what you're feeling is literally generations of frustration, of anger, of disappointment, of hurt, all being poured into this phrase, Black Lives Matter. And so I think it's important to make the distinction, because at the end of the day, we're going to move forward. Everyone has to acknowledge that, yes, absolutely, Black Lives Matter, because the difference between that and anything else, I'm a huge proponent of human rights. I believe everybody should have the ability to, say whatever they want, even if I disagree with you. And, but I think that the difference between, even gay rights and, blue, quote unquote, blue rights or whatever is that we can't hide this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you can take off your uniform and no one knows you're a cop.
Yeah, that part.
You could, and I'm gonna be silly, but you could stop walking a certain way,
right,
and people not know you gay,
right.
And I'm being ridiculous, but you get the point.
But I'm sure that has been done. I mean, even when you go back to the football player that came out.
Yeah, I know you're talking about the
Michael Sams.
Michael Sams, yeah.
So I mean, even you think about that. I mean, no one knew.
Well, there's a closet for a reason.
Right.
That's why they call it the closet.
Right. And especially in that space. But anyway, back to your point.
So yeah. So anyways, so my point is that like I can't, I can't like be black in the closet.
Right.
I can, even if I try to be a quote unquote Carlton, right. or whatever,
you still black.
It still is what it is, and so because of that, it is a different plight. It doesn't mean that anyone else hasn't had their plight. It just means we've had no other people in this country have dealt with the sheer overload of abuse and discrimination and all of the things that come with being black as we have. I don't believe in a victim mentality. I don't believe that we should, like everything is whitey's fault, like it's all white, No. But there are things that are systematic that have been from the black codes right after slavery to redlining. And if y'all don't know what this is, you need to Google. Yeah. Because they don't teach us this in school, but to redlining, the unfair housing practices, the GI Bill, the Tuskegee experiments. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. So the point is that before we can go anywhere, because here's what is the problem today, is that typically, because we've seen this before, right? Like you could go back to the riots in '92. Mm-hmm. You can go back to the Watts riots. Mm-hmm. You can go back to when all over the country they rioted when Dr. King was murdered. Right. We've seen this in some variation or another. We're mad. Give us our rights. Right. We shall overcome. Right. We've seen this before. Right. But what we haven't seen, because typically it goes right, and it's like 2 weeks. Right. And then people go on with their life.
No, but you said something interesting. It could have gone longer than 2 weeks. But the fact that they didn't have what we have today, which is digital and social media and the instantaneous situation. If you think about back then, even for a headline to even be a headline, it took like 2 weeks to get to the major network. You know what I'm saying? So now you can do 2 seconds and you live and in action. So, which is different, I think, and you made key points as well. We're talking about what has happened and, the things of, the Tuskegee experiment, all these other things that you listed. The problem is because you're talking about, the Black Lives Matter thing. I think because, unfortunately, they don't understand what it's like to be us and being black 100% of the time, 24 hours, 365. You know what I'm saying? And don't understand the things that happen to us as being black because they don't see it. They say, "Oh, you guys, you got housing, you're good." Well, you don't understand what
Magic Johnson is rich.
Well, but not only that, but you don't see what we have to go through every day. You only see like, okay, you guys got housing, but not the fact that I was turned down 5 times for a loan, and then the loan that I got was predatory. Right. And basically, I'll never own this piece of property. You know what I'm saying? Right. And the bank knows it, so I'm just going to go ahead and take it from you. So you go ahead 5 years in, and it's going to be my house anyway. Right. But not understanding that those are the things that happen to us, not, even going back to the Tuskegee thing. Oh, yeah, we're giving them vaccination. We're taking care of them, but not realizing that we're implanting this disease.
They gave them syphilis.
That they can't get rid of. I don't care. I mean, if you think it's something that has never, you get herpes or you get syphilis, you have it forever. Now, you can be calm in the situation, you won't have problematic symptoms, but the fact is you still have it, right? Regardless. So those kind of things that we don't necessarily talk about, and because unfortunately, there's an old adage that says, don't judge a man unless you can walk a mile in his moccasins.
Right.
They'll never walk in our moccasins. You walk next to us, but when you close the door,
Right.
or you know what I'm saying, or we walk into a facility or whatever,
Right.
and it's me and a white person.
Right.
The white person gets a different response than
Right.
us.
And I think that's part of the, and here's the thing, like I've been having talks with a lot of my white friends, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, look, I don't expect you to understand.
Wait, sorry. You have white friends? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at that picture and you going, you got white friends? No, I'm sorry.
But and I've been telling them because like, okay, like everyone else in the beginning, right? Well, and kind of, and it's a trip because kind of to be black is to be perpetually angry, right? To some degree, our experience.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Right.
Right. And so, but, and me trying to like be someone who leads,
Right.
who tries to inspire people, who tries to make a difference, I made it a point to try to, if people are open to talk to me, I'll have the conversation. And I've been very upfront about this is going to be an uncomfortable situation because it's like this, and this is the best correlation I can give. I've had a number of female friends who have been the victims of like sexual abuse or, been raped, been molested, whatever the case is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an uncomfortable situation for me to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
For one, because I don't know, I'll never understand
Right.
what that is, number one, right?
Right.
But number two, it forces me to look at myself, because let's be honest, growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? Especially hip hop culture, super misogynistic,
And
right?
still is to a certain degree.
Right.
Right.
And so, I have to look at myself and go, well, yo, what things did I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm being honest,
Perpetuate the situation.
when I was younger,
Right.
oh God, dude, I was a predator.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but then I made the, and even as I got older, there's the like boys will be boys, or
Right.
that's just how things were back then.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Right. But, you can't make those, like, that argument doesn't work anymore. Like, oh, that's just how it was. We have to take personal accountability, right? And so it's an uncomfortable conversation because I have to look at me and go, you know what? I've been that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So on the flip side, I understand that it's difficult for white people to kind of look at themselves and go, well, maybe, like, because, no one thinks they're racist, right? Just like no dude thinks that he's a predator.
Right.
You think you just hollering.
Right.
But you don't realize this girl has gone through her whole life. And then even just in that day, 52 dudes done told her like, hey, you got some fries to go with that shake or whatever, the dumb, stupid stuff that guys say because we're all dumb.
Right.
So in the same way, like, it's very difficult to look in the mirror and go, have I been racist without realizing it? You know what I'm saying? But I think if we're open to that, we can begin the process of healing and of reconciliation, right? But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's not on our shoulders. So,
And now it's on your shoulders as far as what?
meaning it's not on black people's shoulders to like, it's on the burden of white people, to be honest with you, or just non-black people in general,
Okay.
to take accountability and take responsibility for the fact that, look, because I know I still to this day dress a certain way a lot of the times, and
A lot of the time? Sorry.
You know what I mean? And I even though I can be very articulate,
All right.
one of my favorite languages that I speak is Ebonics.
Right.
And I love being loud and all these things. And so I know that when I go into certain areas, I got to tone it down. We joke that we got the telephone voice, right?
Right.
All black people got the interview voice,
Right.
right? And so I understand all of these things, and I get, because to this day I still, and I'm a law-abiding citizen. Me and you started a mentorship thing. Like, I think I'm a great guy. I mean,
Right.
at least I try to be.
Right.
But to this day, I still have women who snatch their purses or don't want to get in the elevator, based just simply on my shell.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
You know, and so moving forward, this thing is not going away anytime soon. Matter of fact, it's going to ramp up as we get closer to the election. It's going to get louder and louder. And the sooner we have these uncomfortable conversations, the sooner we can get to some resolution. Because look, if y'all want us to be quiet, we need to sit down and talk. And it starts with, look, there is nothing wrong with, like, so let me be clear. Black lives matter. Period. Exclamation mark. And from my homegirl from Compton, period. Right? Point blank, period.
Right.
Black lives matter. And there's nothing wrong with that statement. It doesn't negate anyone else. It doesn't suppress anyone else.
Right.
It's simply saying, look, we have not mattered in this country for 400 plus years. Damn it, we matter.
Right.
Deal with it.
Well, you made a point that's very interesting. It didn't say it matters more or it doesn't matter less. It just matters. Like, that comedian Michael Che, it just matters. And unfortunately, because...
Can we start there? Can we just...
It just matters, not more, not less, just matters. Just matters. And I think, even, not trying to defend the all lives matter situation, because that's the thing. Well, all lives matter. You're right. It does. But just in you saying that Black lives matter, regardless of, the point is that we're just trying to let you know that we matter. And I think you said something that, the George Floyd thing happened and it opened up a bottle of chaos, which has been brewing for years, centuries, however you want to put it. It's been a long time. The difference now, though, is that if you look back in the 60s and, I'm light-skinned black, got fair skin, got good hair, as they quote, good hair. But I think about the things that my mother and my grandmother had to go through. I'm the dark. I actually literally am the black sheep of my family. I'm the darkest one of my family. So if that is any indication to tell you what, it's about, my mother is extremely fair. Her hair is extremely straight. And to hear some of the stories that she tells me that her and her sisters had to go through, it's terrifying, to be truthfully honest. And then especially in that time, because, when people say, oh, you could pass, but what does pass mean? And why do I want to pass? Because if I am who I've been taught to be all my life, with my birth certificate saying that I'm black, well, why would I be anything else? And passing, what does that necessarily mean? And it's funny because I have this conversation with dark skins, all the time. Well, you light skins are this and that. And it's like, well, before you start there, I am more militant than most of my friends that are darker than me. Because one, I had to fight both sides of the coin. You guys only have to fight one side of the coin. And so you're telling me to do something that I don't want to do because you tell me to pass. So would ask you, would you pass if you could? And what does passing mean?
Well, I think some people, which actually kind of brings me to my next point, where, a lot of people have been quoting Martin Luther King, right? But people forget that in the 60s, and especially right before he died, his approval rating was less than 22%.
Right.
Across the board, black, white, young, old, whatever. Right. The truth is, most people who now say, "Oh, Dr. King is great," would have really been supporting the Birmingham police, or the Selma police, or et cetera, right? So let's be clear about that, right? But here's because I want to ask you, like you, I have for many years of my life was involved with a lot of churches and ministry and doing things or whatever, and the part that has been baffling me the most, right? Has not even been, and it's weird to say this because this whole conversation is whatever, but...
So let's go for it.
Let's go for it, whatever, who cares? Has not been regular white folk.
Right.
Has been church...
White folk.
And not even just white folk, just non-black folk.
Right.
Right? And so, because I can't understand, like, no matter what you believe or, like, but if you have any type of spiritual type of inclination leaning, right? But we'll specifically use evangelical Christianity, right? Following the tenets of Jesus, right?
Okay.
It is impossible, if you really follow those tenets, for you to be upset with Black Lives Matter. It is impossible for you to have, but these are I'm asking you because I know you know what I'm saying? You work with youth groups and you go to a very big church, a prominent church, and you know what I'm saying? So it's really, look, like just yesterday, right? I saw a post, and I'm not putting nobody on blast, but I saw a post of a lot of quote unquote Christian folk, right? Good people. I'm not hating on them. Good people, known them for years, whatever, right? But because the Dodgers kneeled, right? And these are supposed diehard Dodger fans.
Right.
So the Dodgers kneel, and I saw all kinds of, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful, it's all these things. I'm never going to watch the Dodgers again. First of all, I'm like, really? You ain't never going to watch the Dodgers again?
Well, no,
really?
But let's be real. Do you think the Dodgers care?
But let's keep it 100 because they kneeled,
right?
And even because again, again, just to be clear, Kaepernick, because we're blaming it on him, right? We're blaming it on Colin.
No, they're blaming it on Kaepernick.
Well, whatever. We're all
not us. You said we, so don't put me in that.
So, but whoever's blaming it on Kaepernick has already articulated, and if you didn't know, let's be clear. It was never about the flag. It was never about the troops. It was to bring a light to exactly what we're dealing with, police brutality, right? Which, by the way, since George Floyd, over 80 people have been killed by police, just since him. Right. We still ain't dealt with Ahmaud and Breonna and all these other things, but whatever.
Right.
So that was what it was about. It was never about the flag. Matter of fact, he asked a Green Beret, which I'm assuming a Green Beret is patriotic.
I would think. I'm
just guessing.
Right.
You know what I mean? The Green Beret was the one that told him the respectful thing to do is to kneel. That was this respectful thing to do. So that we're clear, it was never about being anti-patriotic. Matter of fact, I feel as Black people, we are the most patriotic people in this country because we bled and died and literally built this country.
Right.
You know, because had it not been for the economics of slavery, America wouldn't have jumped ahead of the rest of the world economically, and we wouldn't be the superpower that we are today. Right. Not to mention all the other things. But so I'm super patriotic because I feel this is my country.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You can disagree, but this is my country, damn it. You feel me? So anyways, that being said, I asked you a question. The question is this, man. What's wrong with church folk, man? Why are they so like up, like they chonies is up in a bunch and they tripping on this and can't get behind it? And why is it an issue and they're so afraid to touch this thing as if, again, Jesus, right, wouldn't have been down with the movement? Wasn't he for the oppressed?
Right. That's what he came here for. But what's interesting, you say church folk. Unfortunately, and it's not just church folk, but I think it's just humankind in general, is the fact that we're all selfish beings. Regardless of what we want to say it or not, we are selfish to an extent.
Okay. All right.
No, and I'm not trying to, seriously. But I think that the hard part about, church folk, let's be real. If we were truly believing in what the Bible says, and if we believe that it was written when it was written and where it came from, if they truly understood what that was.
Jesus, they got blonde hair and blue eyes.
I'm sorry. I don't think anyone in the Bible was black. If we wanted to
was black or white?
I mean, was white.
Right.
I don't think anybody based on.
They didn't have British accents in the Middle East.
Here's my question, and I hope I don't mess anybody up with this saying this. But I don't know anybody from that region named Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. No disrespect. I'm just trying to figure it out.
It's how you pronounce it. It's Jach. It's Jach.
And like I said, I hope I don't mess with anybody's head on that situation. That's just me personally. And I don't, you can say what you want to say, whatever. But back to the church folk thing. I think it's really difficult. You said something earlier in this conversation that was important, and it's the part that we have to have the dialogue. We have to talk about it. And I think the issues even in the church need to be addressed. I think we push it under the mark of, well, Jesus got it covered, and I'm going to just leave it there and not talk about it. But you can still have your feelings, unfortunately, sitting in the pew next to the person that you have issue with, but you smile and you downplay it. And the problem is you don't realize that it is like what, George Floyd happened, is you took the cap off and said, well, how long has it been brewing in the church? Where you've got these problems going on in the church, and you smile.
Man, look, I have been asked literally, and let me say this because
I hope that answered your question.
No, it did, but I have to say this because if not, people are gonna think that I'm Dylan Roof and I'm going in shooting up Bible studies.
Okay,
and that's an extreme.
No, I hear
feel
you.
what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I believe the vast majority of people in church are sincere people who want to be better. Right. I honestly believe that.
Okay.
We all have our own things that we predispositions, something like that. That's the word? I think that's the word. Yeah, we go. From how we were raised, the culture in which we were raised in, right? The age in which we were raised in, right? So I get all of that, right? And so, but the overwhelming culture in evangelical Christianity has become so, and I don't even want to know if it's become, because I don't necessarily think it's changed. I mean, at least in my lifetime, and even Dr. King said the most segregated hour in America is
church.
Yeah. So,
and you got 10 churches on the same, 4 churches on the same block, and yet they all praise differently.
Right.
But yet you're supposed to believe in God and you worship different, you pray different, all these things. But
Right. But, like I said, I firmly believe I love church. I love church people. I think so I want to say that because I don't want people to think that like, Jay's over here,
Right.
Banging on churches and whatever. Right. All I'm saying is this is I would just love to be able to sit down with, and I blame not just the quote unquote non-black church, but the black church as well.
of course,
I would love to be able to talk to, and look, and I'm saying this right now, I'm inviting pastors. Any pastor want to come talk to me, I'll have you on another segment and we will talk and have this out. But like, there's a reason why an entire generation is disconnected with church.
oh,
You know what I mean? There's a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like, I'm just really disappointed that, because who led the front during the civil rights movement? It was the church. Where's the church at today?
Right.
You feel me? And so it's saddening to me, man, because what you're seeing, and this is what I tried to articulate to a couple pastors I spoke to, what we're seeing in the streets is a broken generation. They don't know we don't know how to deal with this.
Right.
Right. So how's a dude younger than me going to know how to deal with this? So yes, you're seeing frustration. And for the record, most of the violence and the ridiculousness was not us. It was agitators that ain't got nothing to do with the movement. Let me say that. But that being said, Martin Luther King said rioting is the voice of the unheard. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you expect for someone who doesn't know how to it's like a child. You don't know how to articulate your feelings. So it's this cry, it's this scream, it's this yell. You might throw some rocks because you're saying, I just want to be heard. I just want to be seen. I want to matter. Right. And the one group that should be out there going, okay, you know what? Even if we don't disagree, even if we don't agree with you on everything, even if, whatever, young man, you need to pull your pants up, whatever, we love you. And we're here with you and we're going to help walk you through this thing. You feel what I'm saying? Instead of doing that, and this is not every church. I get it. There's a lot of great people out there doing things, right? But by and large, the attitude is because we don't like the phrase Black Lives Matter, we staying away from that because all of a sudden that's political, but then we want to love on Trump. Whole nother conversation.
Yeah, please let's not talk about that one. I hope you didn't bring me here for that.
So I just, I don't want to necessarily beat up on that. I needed to get it out because it's been frustrating me because I spent so many years working with ministries and do, and I plan in my future, you know what I mean? Because it is what it is. But I just it's got to change. And if it doesn't change, I just really see a lot of great people because they're going to stick to their stubbornness. And they're going to blame it on the people instead of taking accountability.
Well, ain't that the easy road?
Yeah, I guess, man.
It's the easy road out, right? I mean, it's like a professional sports team fails, right? It's the coach's fault, right? It's never the player's fault. Coach ain't on the court, coach ain't on the field, but it's the coach's fault, right? I know you're supposed to be leadership or whatever, but you know what I mean? It's easier to get rid of the leader than it is.
All I'm saying, man, is look, we have to get to a point where if we're adults, we can disagree with each other, have discourse, and still be respectful.
Right.
Right. And not talk about just emotions, but because I'll listen to anything you have to say if it's facts. Well, I'm not trying to hear your emotions and your opinions because I heard that Obama was born in Kenya. Okay, bring some facts on that, cuz you know what I'm saying?
No.
Obama's a Muslim. Really? Because he went to if we recall, when he first got elected, and I'm not even over here pushing Obama, I'm just saying, talking about emotions and opinions, he went to a very, very radical black church that, was controversial in the beginning because, his pastor was very super pro-black and anti-Bush and a bunch of other stuff.
Well, I think you said something also that we need to touch on. Ultimately, unfortunately, most people speak from emotion because we're emotional creatures. Logic tends to go out the window. You know what I mean? Because you can't feel a fact. Does that make sense?
I feel you.
You see what I'm saying?
I just felt your fact, though.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
But for the most part, when people speak on certain situations, it's always from emotion because it's something they can get behind. Whereas facts, most people don't want to read. and you have to go do some investigation to figure out a fact. And, unfortunately, especially the younger generation, we've been talking about the younger generation, it is so much easier for them to find something that don't mean crap. Because we got World Star Hip Hop, no disrespect. I'm just saying, what are you putting out that is positive, that is something legitimate? I'm okay. From the fact I can get from that is, okay, we got a lot of ratchetness and we got a lot of, some issues that we need to deal with.
We're going to deal with ratchetness in the future for sure.
I mean, and it's only going to get worse because you've got, like you said, these kids have not been educated enough to deal with what's present. And if all they got is that representation of how to deal with things, well, that they think that's the way to go because the majority is doing it. You can be, Instagram famous in a heartbeat, but they think that's arriving. Well, what happens when Instagram is old and gone, like MySpace was? You know what I'm saying?
MySpace ain't around no more.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So you know what I mean? And we get caught up in trying to be 15-minute fame. It's like, I don't want to be, I'm like Quick said, I don't want to be famous. Just give me the money.
Right.
You can keep the fame. I'm good with all that. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in a position where, like Shaq, unfortunately, Shaq is big as a house, but he can't go nowhere and not be noticed.
Right.
But if you look at Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they walk by you, most people won't know who they are.
Right.
And, that's the kind of stuff that we have to continue to push, even from every aspect, the church, education, life.
Right.
The problem is most of us are not having conversations with these youngsters on a real basis. I'm not talking about surface. I'm talking about let's get underneath.
Well, I think because our world is, and the funny thing is we have more means to communicate nowadays.
Oh, man.
So, which is kind of, bringing me to my next point, as we kind of, rear down here. But our world now has officially changed forever with, the COVID-19 epidemic.
Right.
Right. And so, for one, like as we're sitting here right now, we have no clue when things will get back to quote unquote normal, whatever that means.
Right. Whatever normal means.
I mean, think about it, man. We go outside
mm-hmm.
and, we were talking about this yesterday, but like, I remember there was a time when if I went to the bank and I had a mask on and I asked for money,
right,
that was a felony.
Right.
So,
right.
It's just really weird, man. Like everywhere we go, like, matter of fact, y'all can't see this, but our engineer is rocking a mask right now because as we speak, apparently
right.
we're spewing a deadly virus,
right.
The droplets and the whole, we'll
right.
get into all that later, but our world has changed.
Right.
Right. And I think that even that kind of has added to, people were inside for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
People were restless, were frustrated, and all this energy bubbled up in this moment. Mm-hmm. And it's still there because more states are locking down again, just like California just did. But, okay, so I'm going to touch on it. Let me ask you this, man. Because we hear 100 different things on COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have my opinion because right now with COVID, I don't know what the facts are, just to be 100% honest, because we've heard different things.
Fake news. Okay.
Well, we hear different things, right?
No, you're right. There's so much information.
And everyone's an expert.
Right.
So before I say what I believe, what is your thoughts on COVID-19, man? Like, is this really, the end of times? The world is ending, or is it vastly over-exaggerated, or something in the middle?
To be truthfully honest, I personally, I believe it's overly, stated. That's just me. Because here's the thing. I mean, based on the things that we have heard that are supposedly factual on what this virus does, the numbers aren't showing it. You tell me it's this great thing. I mean, tuberculosis kills people.
100,000 people.
I'm sorry, 100,000 people out of how many? And we're talking global. So anyway.
Well, no, I'm saying in the United States,
okay.
Just to give numbers, there's upwards of 35 million people.
And
no, I'm sorry. 350 million people.
Right.
My bad. 350 million people in the United States, and 100,000 and some change.
Okay, died of COVID, right?
Correct.
But how many people have died of tuberculosis? How many people have died of the flu? How many people have died of pneumonia? How many people died in car crash? I'm sorry. How many people died of suicide in this 3-month period due to.
You know what? While you talking,
let's have that conversation.
Google.
And I mean, you know what I mean? And mental health has killed many more people than this virus ever will. The scary part about the whole thing about this COVID situation for me is how many people are going to die from poverty after this is all over. How many families have been destroyed because their family business that they've had for 2 generations is no longer available. They can't make the money. And then trying to get in the job market because they don't have a business anymore. They don't have the business skills. So what do? What happens when that family decides to go do something and they can't, or you can't, ask for aid? You don't qualify. So then what happens? How many generations are you going to ruin based on however, I'm not saying that it's not a situation, but we deal with sickness every day. And, they say the numbers are the people that are most vulnerable are those who have pre-existing conditions. Okay, so why aren't we just putting those people in quarantine to put them in a safe environment? Okay, why aren't we doing that? Why is it everybody? Why are we stopping the economy? Why are we putting stimulus out when, unfortunately, how is that stimulus going to get paid back? So in the next couple of years, when this lifts and all done, guess what? Taxes are going through the roof in order to pay this debt back. Because you can't just print money.
Why not? It's paper.
Anyway, the problem is, unfortunately, is the problem. The next generations are not really paying attention to what's really going on because they keep getting fed what the media keeps perpetuating to them. And so instead of, sitting down and explaining, like I do with my kids, we have this conversation. It's like, how does it affect you? How do you feel? Okay, so what are you going to do to change that? The problem is there's not enough of us having conversation with the next generation on how to solve the problem, because we can sit here and talk about the symptoms all day. But if we don't have a cure for it, just in racism, socialism, gender, if we don't have those uncomfortable conversations, which you were talking about earlier, is if we don't have those conversations, we will never get to the end road. And I believe with this COVID situation, they keep feeding you this situation that you're continuously talking about, and the things that you really need to talk about never get addressed.
Well, I will say this. So far, suicide, COVID hasn't beat. There's only 48,000 suicides. Only.
Only. But that's not important.
But I guess if you add that to other deaths, and you know what I mean?
Well, and to be truthful honest, how many are legitimately COVID deaths?
Man, see, now you're going to open the door on a bunch of other stuff.
I'm just asking. I'm just saying. Well, I mean, here's the thing about it.
Okay, let's go there.
Okay, real quick before you go to that point. They are saying that you're testing positive for COVID if you just have a couple of the symptoms. Doesn't necessarily mean you have, those symptoms exist in other situations. It's not just COVID. So what are we doing about that? Why are we really, what is truly COVID?
Anything that you die from.
Anyway.
Well, no, okay. I've spoken to several people who work in the medical field because, I don't like to be ignorant. So hey, you guys are actually the on the front line, quote unquote. Tell me what is your take on this situation? Because you obviously know more than I do.
Right.
Right. And every single one of those people, including someone who is actually a mortician, told me that, number one, the hospitals are getting incentives.
Of course.
To call it a COVID death. Number two, they stated several instances where, say, someone got in a car accident, their lungs got crushed, but because they happened to have COVID, it was
a COVID death.
Right. And those who know me know that I am low-key a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not being a conspiracy theorist on this one. Mm-hmm. I just think that there's a lot more to this than just what we see on CNN or Fox News or whatever else.
100. I believe that.
And so the thing is that at the end of the day, I truly believe that this is my belief, that in the attempt to, because we're in a political year, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I could be wrong. So this is just
just real quick.
Yeah.
Right before Trump got elected, wasn't we going through a pandemic? Not necessarily a pandemic, but there was a scare going on with some disease.
Well, there was Ebola, and there was,
I'm just saying.
Ebola. Ebola scares me.
But Ebola kills. Did we wear masks during Ebola?
Nah.
Okay, just asking.
It's a lot more contagious and
Just
it kills
asking.
a lot quicker. But here's the thing. Okay, I get it. I will say this thing is a real thing.
No, I get it.
I've known several people who've gotten corona. I would say upwards of 50 people
Mm-hmm.
that have tested positive for corona.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 50, they've all managed. Some sicker than others,
Right.
but they've all managed to recover.
Right.
And so again, I do believe it is a real thing. I people are catching it, or whatever. Again, for disclaimer, this is my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is maybe, and I don't want to sound like Trump, but it's a little bit more severe than the flu.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that our government vastly acted on this, and then some certain powers that be took advantage of it, because obviously if the economy is in the toilet during an election, the hope is that would be a determining factor in 45 not being reelected.
Right.
Not understanding that the average person doesn't necessarily even live check to check, like they live day to day. Right.
If they're lucky.
And the repercussions of this will be a lot bigger for not just the economy, but just for society in general.
Mm-hmm.
If it continues to go because there's people who literally are like, yo, I don't know what I'm going to do,
Right.
And how will people rebound from this?
Right.
Obviously, if you're wealthy, you could ride this out. And
and you said, most people don't even live paycheck to paycheck because their paychecks don't pay for all their bills. So unfortunately, they're putting themselves in a bind they can't get out, and they put it on credit card or whatever. They pull
Mm-hmm.
the loan out just to pay your day to day.
Yeah, and I encourage anyone who lives in the LA area, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be LA, but downtown LA is overwhelmingly.
Oh my gosh!
The night of the living dead. Like, look at
Tent City is everywhere.
Come on, man! Like, I remember, I can't even think that maybe 2 years ago it was this bad.
Right.
Like, seriously, I don't remember it being
on every block.
I mean, just
on every bridge.
Overwhelmed. Yeah,
it was everywhere.
And that's not just mentally ill, not just drug addicts.
Not
like, it's
just
people who just
veterans.
You're
talking
legit,
people that,
just like I can't afford to live in Los Angeles.
Right.
It happened to me this quick.
Right.
And so I just think this whole COVID thing is going to be something that we're dealing with, honestly, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I think that, a year from today, we're probably still going to be wearing masks.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I think we might not see, because look, was it 75 or 80 or whatever giant amount of people, NFL athletes tested positive for COVID.
Right.
Wait till now that the NBA's playing, because somehow COVID still magically reaches you after you quarantine, because I've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So just life as we know it, in terms of, because let's be real, a lot of our stress relief was entertainment.
Correct.
So college sports ain't going to happen.
Nope.
So the NFL really likely might not happen.
Well, and it's interesting because with the NBA starting as well as the MLB, and I was looking at a game yesterday, and they had stand-ups behind the plate and
Right.
first base line. It was just kind of funny to watch. I mean, you think it looked like you were trying to stage a movie,
Right?
For background. But I think they're doing it with the auspice of hopefulness. And I don't think it's going to be, like you said, it's going to happen. I think we're going to shut down again. I mean, we could wait till next year.
Cold and flu season.
Right.
Like, we're in the summertime, man.
Right,
Let's
right.
keep it 100.
Right.
Like, we're in the summertime. People are freaking out because it spiked. It went, 8,850 million people. I mean, okay. Again, it's a real thing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. But look, wait till cold and flu season comes.
Right.
When you're getting sick, before COVID even existed, right?
Your nose is going to be running and,
Do you understand
do you have COVID?
how chaotic people are going to be?
Right.
Do you understand how, for one, I just got to ask this question real quick because we coming to a close here real soon. But what does toilet paper have to do with COVID? Sorry, just a stupid question. I'll leave that to myself. I just never understood why the toilet paper was the first thing to go. Like, not Halls.
Because they were, well, here's the thing.
Not Theraflu.
Well, exactly. But how come we didn't stock up on vitamins? How come we didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are the things that, how come we didn't take probiotics? How come we didn't do anything to build our immune system? How come vegetables were still on
I
the...
ask dumb questions, man.
How come vegetables were still available? Oh, I'm sorry, because we don't eat vegetables.
Because that's a stupid question. Okay?
Anyway.
That's a stupid question. That's why.
I mean, wiping your butt saved your life?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Hey, and if you bougie like me, man, you need wipes. So that stuff going. It's problems. I can't use the regular stuff no more, man. I ain't from the hood no more. You know what I'm saying? Like them days is gone. That rough stuff,
right?
That give you hemorrhoids on the spot.
Yeah,
I can't do it. But anyways, let me just say this. Look, I first of all, thank you, man. I appreciate you listening to me ranting with me. On this stuff, because it's just stuff that we need to talk about, and I think obviously there's a lot more conversations we need to have. This is just the very beginning, but in closing, I want to say this: I am optimistic because I understand, being a student of history, that humanity has seen this before in some variation or another. We've seen this before. I don't believe it's the end of times. I mean, honestly, we've seen worse times. I mean, people read. No one reads a book, but Google the Dark Ages.
Right. Right.
I mean, even in this country, I mean, again, going back to the period after slavery. I mean, slavery in and of itself, whatever. But when it was normal for a Sunday afternoon brunch, people going out and taking pictures of having a picnic around a lynching and taking pictures and turning into postcards. To me, that's worse than what we're dealing with today. For sure. In my opinion. For sure. And so I'm hopeful, man. I'm optimistic, because I believe that if I can have a conversation with 4 quote unquote non-people of color, why not 400 or 4,000 or whatever the case is, And so I just believe that, look, you're going to be uncomfortable for a while. To all my non-black friends, and even black people, we've been uncomfortable, so whatever. We just live uncomfortable. But for everybody, it's going to be, but look, being uncomfortable never killed anyone. Right. Being uncomfortable never, seriously damaged anyone. You know what I mean? And if we can learn to just be uncomfortable for a little bit, I believe we can get through this. And again, to sound super cheesy and idealistic, we can leave a world better for our children than what we had to deal with. Because as much as it sucks right now, I've never drank from a fountain that said colored. I've never we chose to sit in the back of the bus in school, right? Right. But you know what I mean? I didn't have to sit in the back of the bus, right? I've never had to cross the street when a white man was coming my way and not look him in the eye. Right. So it's better. Well, I got to say that, you know what I mean? And even I don't mind if people are coming out of the racist closet. I'd rather know that you feel that way. Right. Then, I mean, just to keep it 100, I'd rather know that that's how you feel, because then we could at least deal with it, and
at that face level, and not knowing that, you're behind my back. It's funny you say that. It's like I told my sons, you're only 2 generations away of not being able to hang out with the people you hang out with.
Not even 1.
And then the fact that you're not even that far removed from where, when the sun go down, you ain't supposed to be in certain parts of the city. Yeah. And the fact that you have that opportunity to do that is, and understanding that is a privilege, I mean, it should have been a right, but it's a privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
come on, the community you live in, man.
For sure.
You live in Rancho Cucamonga. Right. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's not a black neighborhood.
No. For all intents and purposes, correct. But I mean, and back to, that goes to your redlining situation as well. I mean, in LA, there were certain areas that you could not live. And now when, the blacks took over these certain areas, people are like, oh, they left LA. They went to Palmdale. They went out to the Far East and those kind of things in the valley. And then, now they all want to come back. And so it's a different kind of redlining, and the people who are buying property don't look like us either. Don't look like the white folks either. So, you know what I'm saying? And so those are the kind of conversations I'm sure, that we can bring up, you want to bring up later on or whatever. But I think, and I'll just say this to end what I have to say. I'm excited to be on this platform because it allows me to speak, that in conversation that I don't necessarily get to have, but it expands to larger, audience than just you.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? And I want to thank you and appreciate that for being asked to be on your first show. So.
No, it's all love, man. I like, because I'm kind of medium skinned, so I like light skinned people.
There you go with
That's
that.
That's a new category.
There you go with
medium
that, you darn Carmel people.
But let me say this in summation. I want to say that, look, man, we still live in the greatest country on the planet Earth.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I still personally know a hell of a lot more amazing non-black people than I do terrible ones.
For sure.
I think that in a weird way, all of this, I call 2020 the reckoning, right? Because from BLM to COVID to, which we'll talk about later, Wayfair,
that whole another
all
situation.
this other stuff.
Right.
Like, I think all of this stuff, you can't deal with anything until you bring it to the surface,
For
right?
sure.
Like, just
For
like
sure.
you can't overcome being a drug addict or alcoholic until you actually deal with the ugliness of it, right? So we needed to deal with the ugliness of it.
Right.
So I want to say, look, I hope that you tune in the future because, look, we're not just going to be ranting and raving or whatever, but it's important that we have these conversations. And so for the record, I love white people. I think white people are amazing. I'm very bougie, so a lot of the things that white people taught me.
Thank you very much for that.
And I love black people. I love my people, but I love people, I love learning about different cultures and different foods and different, because we all have a richness to add to life, man.
Right.
Or every single one of us. And there's stereotypes for a reason, right? Because I could give you every black stereotype and be like, yeah, you kind of right on that one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sense ratchetness.
Yeah. There's stereotypes for a reason, but at the end of the day, we're a lot more alike than we are different, right?
For sure.
And so it's learning those things and learning and understanding that our differences are really actually dope. If you understand why certain people do certain things, and when you understand like where it comes from, you're like, oh, you can have an appreciation for that. And we'll get into that in the future. But I appreciate, everyone, for tuning in. Please share this with your friends. Get at your boy. Follow me on Instagram. It's at JLoveOfficial. That's JLOVE official. You know what I mean? You got to do these shameless plugs, man.
I just said you spelled J Love and then you went to official, so that was kind of funny.
Well, because people want to put a JAY.
I get it. I just thought that was funny.
People always want to put a JAY, but follow your boy. I got a bunch of new projects coming up in the future. I got a new television show called J Loves America. You like that title, huh? Yes. Right? J Loves America is going to be really dope. I'm producing some other shows, some film projects. Hopefully, we can get into at the beginning of next year, depending on how all this stuff plays out. But I'm really excited about this podcast. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about a lot of things. If nothing else, I think I'm interesting. I don't know.
Interesting looking. Yes.
Something
you
like
are
that.
Correct.
But I just want to say, look, I want to leave everybody with this, is that if we all make it just a minimum effort, and I'm not even asking you to give it your everything, but just to make a minimum effort to try to see it from the other side of the table, I think that we can get to a place where we don't necessarily even have to agree, but we can be like, all right, I see where you coming from. And, I may not agree with you, but okay, I'm going to give you your like, I don't expect a lot. You feel me? And so with that, I just want to say, it's your boy, J Love. Thank you for tuning into the Revolution Podcast. As always, I want to remind you to reach for your best, reach for success, but most of all, reach for God, because God is love and love is everything. You know what I mean? I hope to see you on the next one, Mark DeMoica. Thank you, my dude.
For sure. Not a problem.
For sitting there with me. Can I say one last thing? I believe the children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride and make it easier. Let the children laugh and play. And there's something, there's a few words. 'Cause I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, you can't take away my dignity. Because the greatest love of all's inside of me. I love y'all, man. It's your boy.
Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We want to hear from you. Instagram at The Revolution Podcast, at JLoveOfficial, and at Mars Mindset.